This is a special edition of Late Night Health. I'm Mark Alyn. We're going to speak to an old buddy of ours, and that's Dr. Ken Redcross. His book, by the way, is called Bond, The Four Cornerstones of a Lasting and Caring Relationship with Your Doctor. That's probably because doctors sometimes only give you 4 minutes to talk to them. We're going to talk today about stress relief in these uncertain times. Dr. Redcross, welcome back to Late Night Health.
Hey, Mark, how are you? Thank you so much for having me on. Hi out there, everyone.
Hey, listen, you're a board-certified internal medicine doc. We've talked about this the last time we talked. You saw the light. You do integrative medical training now, and you also work in a holistic way with your patients. With COVID-19, with all the stress that wearing those masks bring and having to have gel and wash your hands and all this, how do we reduce the stress? What's the best way of doing that?
Oh, wow, Mark. Well, I'll tell you guys, everyone's kind of going through this and trying to figure out. I'll tell you, one of the things that's unique about my practice, Mark, is that I make house calls. And so I'm in the homes with a lot of the patients who are COVID-19 positive and seeing what their bigger problems are. Now, there's two big ones. Number one, obviously, it's the stress of having the coronavirus, but also of the family being in the home as well. And the other thing I see is that there are big issues with sleep. And so that's why that integrative part of my practice becomes increasingly important, Mark, because I have a Western medicine hat I can kind of wear, but when I think of stress and when I think of sleep issues, I think kind of on the Eastern hat. And so I think of two things: Sedalia, which is a homeopathic remedy that actually helps relieve nervousness or irritability or fatigue due to stress. And then I'll also talk to patients about quietude, Mark, and that's important when you have a patient who's having some sleeplessness or restless sleep, which is very disconcerting as well. And so we're seeing a lot of that here in the States right now, and that people are kind of opting for more Eastern ways of managing their stress and sleep than prescription.
And for sleep, I mean, there's a lot of over-the-counter things. They have PM. I know I've tried it, and you wake up the next day, you're groggy as hell.
There you go. And that's the whole point, Mark. And so that's why, for me, before we knew about all this in practice, you would think that a patient can go take Tylenol PM. Everyone, that's pretty much Benadryl in there. And so Benadryl is not necessarily wrong for some people, but for sleep, it's probably not the best agent, which is the reason why I mentioned quietude earlier. You don't get the grogginess. And the second thing you don't get with it is the risk of dependency. Because patients can get very dependent on sleep agents, especially if it makes them kind of feel better and so forth. So we want to get away from that. We've already dealt with the opioid epidemic, which isn't gone, but it's better. And so we don't want to go there when it deals with sleep agents in that way.
And one of the other things that occurred to me is that this is the sleep, the natural kind of sleep with those PM products. Mm-hmm. Are they?
No, it's not a natural way of sleep. So, everyone, we've all heard of REM sleep. REM sleep is the best time for us to get the most restful sleep, and it takes about 90 minutes to kind of get into there. So when you're dealing with some of these other over-the-counter agents, there's a problem with that. We're supposed to be getting 7.5 hours each day, Mark, but I'm telling you, it's not happening. And so we need to change that. And once again, the best way to do that is to stay closer to the earth and not necessarily, rely on a pill to think that it's going to get you to normal sleep cycles, because usually it doesn't, unfortunately.
I've got to ask, you've got kids and you've got a beautiful wife, and you're doing, house calls. I remember house calls, but I won't even tell you what years those were. Right. A long time ago. Being exposed to, the coronavirus, how are you protecting your family when you go home?
Oh, that's a great question. So, look, it's interesting. If any of you guys have seen me there, you wouldn't recognize me when I go into the home, because I have a big old hazmat suit on almost. I have a gown, I have a mask, I have a face shield. All you can see are the whites of my eyes. That's about it. And so I have to make sure when I go in and see patients, I'm doing that. And when I get home, everything comes off before I even get into the door. I put everything in a plastic bag. Look, this is interesting, Mark, because this is the new normal, right? And this is very different, even for me, to have to kind of carry on and taking care of people who have COVID-19 that, quite frankly, should be in the hospital, but there's no room for them because of newer patients who are a little more ill that need to get in there. So providing house calls to these people can be life-saving. And so I just make sure that I do my best with the protective equipment that I have to make sure that I don't bring that home by leaving that all at the door before I walk in, even my shoes.
Absolutely. Jump into the shower, I hope, too.
Oh, yeah. When I'm done, once I kind of have all my house calls done, you're right, that's the end of my day, and make sure that I practice as many precautions as I can.
Here in California, where I am, I'm halfway between Santa Barbara and Los Angeles. Sure. We don't have, and you've been out here, you worked out here, I think you trained out here for a while, and we don't have that many cases. And as we go back to the new normal, as they reopen everything, as businesses throughout the country reopen, what should we do to maintain that low stress level? Because it's going to be stressful. Going to a market is still stressful for me. I was at a Whole Foods yesterday. I walked around. I kept away from everybody. Yeah, good. That's what you have to do, Mark. And so, this new normal is, we'll see. We know that the mask is going to be very important for a while. The social distancing is what I think is one of the bigger things, that 6 feet. And I tell patients even further than 6 feet if possible, because we're learning a little bit more about the transmission. But having that space and recognizing, I realize that everyone wants to get out and get back to normal. But we don't want to necessarily rush it at this point. So if you're going to enjoy those beautiful Ventura beaches, which I get, believe me, I've felt that joy. Make sure you're doing that. If you're going to do it, make sure you're nice and spaced out, and you're still practicing some of that social distancing. And of course, the beaches, as we air this, they're still closed here in Ventura County. Okay, good. As we wrap up here, we want to talk about Quietude, and the other recommendation
Sedalia.
Was... Spell that.
Sedalia. Yeah, Sedalia. They're both available at, like you mentioned, Whole Foods. You can also get it at BoironUSA.com, where they have even more information on stress management and on sleep and that sort of thing. And so I just want us all to be mindful about some things that, as you'll hear me say ad nauseum, that are closer to the earth. Than thinking that we need some of the Western meds. They still have a part for some of this, but for stress and sleep, I think these homeopathic options are just plain better and safer.
And Boiron has a product that I take when I feel a cold coming on, and it just knocks it out almost overnight. Yeah. It's terrific.
The oscillococcinum, maybe?
That's it. That's the one.
Yeah, that'll do it. That'll do it as well. And so, once again, everyone, that's something else that's over the counter. And I think that's the great thing. It's hard to get into your doctors now. I've seen that as far as the coronavirus for people who have reached out to me that have had a hard time getting into the offices. And so these are some things you can do to keep at home in your own little kind of toolkit.
Our guest has been Dr. Ken Redcross. He's a good friend and a practicing physician. The name of the book, Bond, The 4 Cornerstones of a Lasting and Caring Relationship with Your Doctor. We'll have him on again soon, I know. Dr. Redcross, have a safe day.
Thank you so much, Mark. Take care, and everyone stay well. Be blessed, Mark.
You too, Ken. I'm Mark Alyn for Late Night Health. We'll be back.